Okay, so I'm going to begin. Namo Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Bacharane Nirvishesha Shinivadi Paskatyade Satarane. Today I'm going to read from the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we're going to read Bhagavad Gita 7.6. Seventh chapter is called Knowledge of the Absolute. And I'll read the Sanskrit and the purport. Translation purport. Etat dhyani bhutani sarvaniti padarya aham kritsnasya jagata prabhavas pralayastata. All created beings have their source in these two natures. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. Purport. Everything that exists is a product of matter and spirit. Spirit is a basic field of creation, and matter is created by spirit. Spirit is not created at a certain stage of material development. Rather, this material world is manifested only on the basis of spiritual energy. This material body is developed because spirit is present within matter. Child grows gradually to boyhood and then to manhood because of that superior energy. Spirit soul is present. Similarly, the entire cosmic manifestation of the gigantic universe is developed because of the presence of the supersoul, Vishnu. Therefore, spirit and matter, which combine to manifest this gigantic universal form, are originally two energies of the Lord, and consequently, the Lord is the original cause of everything. Fragmental part and parcel of the Lord, namely the living entity, may be the cause of a big skyscraper, a big factory, or even a big city, but he cannot be the cause of a big universe. Cause of the big universe is the big soul, or the super soul. And Krishna, the Supreme, is the cause of both the big and small souls. Therefore, he is the original cause of all causes. This is confirmed in the Katha Upanishad 2:13. Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam. So the verse again. Etad yoni bhutani sarvanitya padarya aham krishnasya jagata prabhavas pralayastata. All created beings have their source in these two natures. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. Namo Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Bacharane Nirvishesha Shinivadi Paskatyade Satarane. Previous weeks, we read verses 4 and 5, where Krishna says that earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, these are Krishna's separated energies. And then we heard that there's another energy, the soul, and the soul is within this material universe. And presently, the soul is within a material body. Aparayami tastvamyam prakati vidime pram jiva bhuta mahabaho yedam daryate jagat. That besides these, almighty armed Arjuna, there's another energy, superior energy of mind, which is comprised of living entities exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. And now we hear about another energy, not exactly energy, the energetic. Etad yonani bhutani sarvadityapadarya aham krishna sajagata pralayas prabhavas pralayas tata. That etad yonani bhutani, all created beings have their source in these two natures of all that is material and all that is spiritual. Know for certain they have both the origin and dissolution. This constitutes knowledge, namely that the world that we're living in is also Krishna's energy. It has different energies. It has energies which seem to be solid, energies that move things, energies that transform things. But all these energies are actually coming from Krishna, just like from the sun comes sunlight, as well as heat. Similarly, there's another energy, the conscious entities, ourselves, and presently we're conscious of the material energy. We're within the material energy, and that's what we're conscious of. But there's another energy, the original source of both energies, and that's Krishna. And as Krishna says here, that prabhavas pralayas tata. Everything that we see that's being transformed, everything that we see that's being created, Krishna is the origin of these things. The whole idea of the Bhagavad Gita is that we can become convinced that everything that's going on in this world is actually under Krishna's control. Only when we can become convinced that everything is under Krishna's control and that we're also following Krishna's direction and therefore under his control, can we be free from anxiety. Therefore, at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Ma suchaha, don't be in anxiety, don't be afraid. Fear arises from thinking that there is something going on apart from Krishna. But when one can see everything in relation to Krishna and understand by seeing things properly, then one can always think about Krishna. Wherever he looks, he'll see Krishna. Even he sees Krishna's energy, then he'll remember Krishna. Even he sees the spirit souls, which are also the superior energy of Krishna. As mentioned in the other verse, there's para prakriti, and then there's apara prakriti. Apara prakriti is the gross and subtle energies that we see around us. And the para prakriti, the living entities, they're also within this world. They're simultaneously one because they come from Krishna, but they're different. One is different from the other. One is considered superior, as I mentioned last week, just like the head is considered to be superior to the lower part of the body. But they're all part of the same body. And they're all being controlled, both are being controlled by Krishna and the soul through the material nature. But still, one is considered superior and the other part is considered to be inferior. When we can understand things properly, then we won't be deluded by modern so-called science, philosophy, sociology, into thinking that something's apart from Krishna, that the universe came out of nothing, the planets are moving on their orbits by gravity, the body is working by mechanical arrangements, solely by mechanical arrangements. We won't be deluded by modern atheistic philosophy, godless, atheistic, impersonal philosophy that's predominated the Western world and has influenced even the so-called Eastern world into becoming deluded that things are going on automatically by chance. Just like when a small child sees a plane flying in the sky, then it assumes that it's just a plane flying. He doesn't see the pilot. Or when he sees a car passing on the street, he assumes it's just going on automatically. He doesn't understand there's a driver, either present in the car or a remote driver. But a person who has knowledge, he knows that there must be a pilot, either remote or personally present in the vehicle. Those who are like children, they believe everything in this material world is happening automatically. Or they refuse to recognize the actual driver behind this world, namely the super soul, the Supreme Lord, and his presence as Paramatma in the universe. Nor do they even recognize that the reason why this body that we're in moves because of the presence of the soul and the super soul. When the soul, ourselves, who are presently in this body, leave the body, then the body ceases to function. That everything stops. Only due to the presence of the soul, and along with the soul, of course, the super soul, this body goes on functioning. So when Krishna, he controls this universe, just like one controls a light switch. If you turn on the light switch, then the lights go on. And if you turn it off, the light turns off. So Krishna is controlling this entire universe, just like one controls a light switch. And it's being controlled by his material energy. He switches the light switch on, the material energy works, and he switches it off, it ceases to work. Therefore, Lord Brahma says in the Brahma Samhita, Shri Sti Stiti Pralaya Sana Shakti Eka Chayeva Yasya Bhavani Vivarta Durga Ischan Rupam Apiyasya Chate Satesa Govindam Adi Purusham Tamahang Bhujami. So we should see this pralaya, this prabhava, prabhava means the creation, and pralaya means the destruction, are all completely under Krishna's control. Just like Ambarish Maharaj, he was a great king, a great devotee, and he dedicated all his energies to Krishna. Therefore it said, Savaimana Krishna Padaravindayo Vichamsi Vaikunta Gunanavartane. So Maharaj Ambarish, first of all, he fixed his mind upon Krishna. Now, we don't believe in Krishna. Fixing our mind upon Krishna will be rather mechanical. If we don't see how things are related to Krishna, how the living entities in this world are related to Krishna, if we don't see how this material nature is related to Krishna, we don't see how the activities of this world are related to Krishna, then our trying to think about Krishna will be rather apart from our present reality. But if one is able to see Krishna, as Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, in a practical way, then it becomes spontaneous or natural to think about Krishna. Just like if one is on the street and he sees any old shoes, if he doesn't know where they come from, he's not very much interested in the shoes. But if he sees the shoes of his beloved child, then naturally he'll remember his beloved child, and the shoes also become dear to him because they're in relation to his beloved child. If we see this world in relation to Krishna, then naturally everything will become dear to us in relation to Krishna. We won't see anything as apart from Krishna. The problem is we think some things are good that are happening to us or happening to others, and we think some things are bad that we think are happening to us and happening to others, and we can't relate it to Krishna. When good things are happening to us, we think we deserve them. They're being manifested on the basis of our prowess, our abilities, our intelligence, And when bad things are happening, we think bad people are doing bad things to us, or the material nature is out of control, and therefore unwanted things are happening to good people like ourselves. Or we think that somehow or another the laws of karma have been set up to give me trouble. We don't accept that everything is part of Krishna's plan to help us remember him. That when we're in difficulty, then we can fix our mind upon Krishna with more sincerity. And when things are going nicely, then we can utilize those opportunities to serve Krishna with more determination and do more effective service for him. If we don't see like that, we'll always be in anxiety. We'll always be consulting with astrology, palmistry, with a newspaper to find out how we can solve all our problems. Just like the person who killed Mahatma Gandhi, he was expert at palmistry. So he decided at the right day he was going to shoot Mahatma Gandhi based on palmistry. So he shot Mahatma Gandhi. He got caught. He was tried and they were about to hang him. And he kept on looking at his hand, trying to figure out what went wrong, because it wasn't supposed to happen according to palmistry, his palmistry. So if we don't see things in relation to Krishna, we look at our hand and try and figure what's going to go on. There'll always be some doubt and we might get it wrong. Because like I said, there was one king, he wanted to find out who was a good astrologer in his kingdom. So he called one astrologer after another and asked them to decide to figure out how long they were going to live for. So each astrologer one astrologer said 25 years more, and the king said he was wrong, took him outside and executed him. So that went on for some time until there were hardly any astrologers left in the kingdom. Finally, he called one astrologer and said, "How long do you have left to live?" And he checked his astrological chart and said, "As long as the king allows me to live." So the king said, "You're a bona fide astrologer." So without seeing, as Krishna says, one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost to him, nor is he ever lost to me. Therefore, in the Brahma Samhita, Krishna says, Yasyaika nishsita kalam atavalambya jivanti loma jagada, that the whole, by Mahavishnu's desire, all these universes are created, of which we're one of the universes. And Mahavishnu enters as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, creates Brahma on a lotus flower, then expands himself into all the planets, into all the atoms, into all the hearts of the living entities. Now, for a materialist, this seems ridiculous. It seems like another fantasy equal to their fantasy, where everything came out of nothing. Now, of course, our philosophy is much more logical, because we see that people create things, and they create, the more intelligence they have, the more power they have, the more their creations are great and intelligently made. If we look at the universe and we look at even our own body, we can understand how things are intelligently made, how we eat food, how it gets digested, how parts of it become assimilated, they turn into different parts of our body, and unnecessary parts hopefully are eliminated. So there is a system in every aspect of the material creation and maintenance and annihilation being done with intelligence, not haphazardly. It's not that one year a a banana tree produces bananas, and the next year it produces oranges. Or that from monkeys, human beings come, although, as I said, sometimes it appears from human beings, monkeys are coming. That human beings produce human beings and monkeys produce monkeys. So there's an arrangement in the universe going on with great intelligence. And there is really no exception. Etad yoni bhutani sarva nitya buddharya. The material nature is simply conscious living entities, whether it's the soul, the Supreme Soul, and the Supreme Soul is guiding us. Now, we may recognize him or we may not recognize him. We may think everything is going on automatically and that I'm free spirit and that by my intelligence I can create, maintain, and annihilate things. But actually, we're every living entity, if they use their intelligence, the human beings especially, can see that even my remembrance of things is not independent. I may have a fantastic memory, but sometimes I can't even remember where my keys were put. Sometimes I try to forget something, especially things that I did wrong that I shouldn't have done. But the more I try to forget them, the more I remember them. And sometimes I try to understand things properly, and all I do is become confused. So our remembrance of things, not only ourselves, but every living entity, even an ant crawling on the ground, depends on knowledge being supplied to us, supplied to the ant, and even to find sugar. He's equipped with a certain senses, but without intelligence, he cannot really utilize his senses even to find sugar. If his senses become disturbed, somehow or another, if his mind becomes disturbed, if he doesn't have he loses his intelligence, then he can't even find sugar. If an ant's going to collect sugar and you put your finger in front of him, then he gets all disturbed and he starts running the other way. And he forgets all about the sugar. He lost his intelligence, how to find the sugar. So everyone with a little use of intelligence can discover that there is a person giving us intelligence. That there is a person who's turning on our knowledge and sometimes turning it off, turning on our remembrance and our forgetfulness. Of course, one has to examine under what circumstances Krishna is giving us remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Just like spiritual knowledge, Krishna says that tesham satatam yuktanam bhajantam priti purvakam. He says, Dadami buddhi yogantam. I give spiritual knowledge to those who are engaged in my service with love and consistency and steadiness. He tells us how to see this world, everyone and everything within it in relation to him, so that we can become even more steady in our, not only our external service to Krishna, but also in our devotion to Krishna, our enthusiasm to serve him, that we can remember him more and more and get more and more of his association, so that we're always enlivened with spiritual remembrance of Krishna. We're actually in the spiritual energy. So at the end of the creation, we have the pralaya, we have the prabhava, we have the creation, which we see now, but we should also remember there's also pralaya. Actually, pralaya is going on all the time around us, but people don't understand why there's pralaya. When someone is born, they become very happy sometimes, because nowadays we're in Kali Yuga, you never know. But generally speaking, when children are born, the parents are happy. But they don't know birth means pralaya, it means death. They think birth is very auspicious, but death is very inauspicious. Because as long as people are in ignorance, then they think birth is an opportunity to enjoy, and death is taking enjoyment away. But actually, death is simply giving people another opportunity for material enjoyment, maybe even on a superior planet, or maybe in another species of life. They like Prabhava, because nowadays people don't even like Prabhava, they're killing the children in their womb. But those who are more civilized, they appreciate the opportunity of the soul, of the living entity to enjoy in the world, but they don't like the idea that opportunity is taken away. When Prabhupada was traveling to a doctor in Los Angeles, then they passed by a movie theater, and the title of the movie theater was, of the movie that was playing in the theater was, "Is There Sex After Death?" So Prabhupada came back and gave a lecture in Los Angeles and was telling the devotees how they could preach when they go out. And he said, I saw the title of the movie, "Is There Sex After Death?" Prabhupada advised the devotees they should go out and tell the people they shouldn't worry. That after death, he said, there is sex after death in 8,400,000 species of life. And if people hear about that, then they won't be afraid of death, because then they know they're going to come back and enjoy, somehow or another in some species of life, and have the opportunity to enjoy. But ultimately, whether there's prabhava, creation, or pralaya, it is all problems, actually, in every species of life. Even Brahma, who's sitting on his lotus, in the lotus planet of Brahmaloka, he has his problems of life. So the problems of life, namely birth, death, old age, and disease, are problematic for the soul unless he can see things in relationship to Krishna. For a devotee growing older, it means that one is going back to Godhead sooner. For a non-devotee growing older, if they perform sinful activities, it may mean that they're going to the lower species of life. As I mentioned in the beginning, Ambarish, he had fixed his mind at the beginning on Krishna, not artificially. It doesn't express how he expressed how he fixed his mind upon Krishna, because it says, Savaimana Krishna Padara Vindayo, Vachamsi Vaikunta Gunanuvardhane. He spent his time glorifying Krishna. Karahara Mandir Marjanardishu, and he used his hands to cleanse the temple of Krishna. In other words, he engaged all his senses and his mind and his activities in Krishna's service, and therefore he was able to fix his mind upon Krishna, or because he had fixed his mind upon Krishna, he was able to do everything in relation to Krishna. Therefore, when Durvasa Muni came and asked, Durvasa Muni always came with his 50,000 followers, and asked for some prasadam, Ambarish Maharaj was very happy to give him some prasadam along with his 50,000 followers. But first, Durvasa Muni, as is custom in India, him and his followers took a bath. But at this time, Ambarish Maharaj was fasting for Ekadasi. He had been observing Ekadasi for 1 year. It doesn't mean that that's all he ate for the year. It means every Ekadasi he observed it, and by strictly following Nilajala Ekadasi. But Ekadasi has a certain time when it's supposed to be broken, or else one loses the benefit of the Ekadasi. Ambarish Maharaj, the time was coming for Ambarish Maharaj. The time was coming to break the Ekadasi, and Ambarish Maharaj inquired from the Brahmins because what to do, because it was considered to be impolite when you asked guests to come, guests to take prasadam with you. It would be impolite to take prasadam before they do. On the other hand, if he didn't take prasadam, he would lose the credit of ekadasi. And therefore he inquired from the Brahmins what to do. And they suggested that he takes a little water, because taking water is considered to be breaking ekadasi and not breaking his ekadasi. So Ambarish Maharaj took a little bit of water. Durvasa Muni came back with his 50,000 followers, and Durvasa Muni saw by his mystic power, Ambarish Maharaj had taken some water. So he became very angry unnecessarily, out of false ego, out of actually envy, again, because Ambarish Maharaj was a great devotee. And so Durvasa Muni plucked a hair from his head, created a fiery demon, and threw it at Ambarish Maharaj in order to kill him. Ambarish Maharaj, tears came from his eyes, not due to the fact that he was in danger, he was about to be killed, but due to his deep meditation upon an ecstasy upon Lord Krishna. Therefore, he was feeling so much transcendental pleasure that tears were coming from his eyes. And of course, we know that Lord Vishnu, in order to protect his great devotee, through his Sudarshan chakra, killed the fiery demon, and the Sudarshan chakra headed for Durvasa Muni to kill him also. Under such circumstances, Durvasa Muni fled, went all over the universe, trying to seek shelter, even to the extent of going to Dhruvaloka, or Svetadweep, Mahavishnu, where Mahavishnu is. Taking shelter of not Mahavishnu, but Svetadweep, where Vishnu resides, asking for protection from Vishnu, Lord Vishnu. The Lord Vishnu said, I cannot give you protection because I'm not independent. I am simply a servant of my devotees. Since you have attacked my devotee, the only shelter you can get would be from my devotee. Durvasa Muni went back and surrendered to Ambarish Maharaj, who forgave him, and therefore Durvasa Muni was protected from the Sudarshan chakra. In other words, there could be no greater protection in this world than thinking about Krishna. And there's no way we can think about Krishna unless we come to the platform of seeing how everyone and everything is related to Krishna. The reason why we forget Krishna is because we think something is apart from Krishna. And the reason why we think things are apart from Krishna is because we utilize our energies not for Krishna's service, but for our sense gratification. Therefore, when we see something, just like the one has a child and raises the child in Krishna consciousness, then every time one sees the child, one will remember Krishna, because the child was brought up to become a devotee of Krishna, and everything the parents did were to help the child become a devotee. Therefore, the child is intimately connected in the eyes of the parents with Krishna. But if parents neglect the children, see the child simply as an object of sense gratification, or simply neglect the child, then every time one sees the child, one remembers sense gratification or the sinful acts one did in relationship to the child. So everything depends upon our utilization. How we see things depends upon how we utilize them. At least everything within our control, if we utilize those things in Krishna's service, fulfill the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, use things especially for the 9 processes of devotional service, use our ears to hear about Krishna, use our tongue to glorify Krishna, utilize the things even in modern society, like the internet or computers, utilize those to serve Krishna by hearing about Krishna. For instance, in this particular broadcast, we're utilizing it to talk about Krishna and to hear about Krishna. So those things will be seen in relation to Krishna. And when we see them, we won't remember anything except for Krishna. Then we won't be afraid. As soon as we forget Krishna, as soon as we're in the Bali concept of life, then we'll always be fearful. And even if we utilize things for Brahman realization, or even Paramatma realization, which is rather rare in this age, but even if we come to that standard, even Brahman realization is a fearful state of existence. Imagine if you were told for the rest of eternity, you're going to stare in front of a blank screen and you have to sit there forever. It would be a fearful state of life, existence. The only existence apart from fear is when we can understand how things are related to Krishna, what the spiritual world is like, what this world is actually like. When we see how Krishna is all good and everything that's happening is one way or another to encourage the souls to think about Krishna. And if one thinks about Krishna enough and deeper enough, then one goes beyond the material nature, one enters into the spiritual nature of experience. And in that spiritual nature of experience, remembering Krishna, his names, his forms, his qualities, his actually entering into his pastimes and experiencing them with our spiritual senses and ultimately in our spiritual body, then only in that state can we be free from all kinds of fear of what's going to happen in this material world. Only when we fully realize our spiritual identities and enter into the spiritual platform of our existence, this spiritual platform of existence, can we become completely aloof from all the problems of material existence. Now, luckily, we're in Kali Yuga, because being in Kali Yuga, there's so many opportunities to be anxiety if one is materialist.
Помедленнее.
So?
Медленнее.
Medlina. There are so many opportunities to be in anxiety of material existence. And if we're not in anxiety yet, then surely we'll be in anxiety very shortly. To think that in Kali Yuga, things are going to get better, things might get better. They'll get better when people follow the Four of the Principles. Otherwise, they have to enjoy either today or tomorrow the reaction to their sinful activities. There is no government. There is no protest by the people. There is no internet solution to stop the reactions to sinful activities other than simply stopping sinful activities. This is Krishna's mercy. Because sinful activities ultimately mean going away from Krishna. Krishna doesn't want us to go away. So he chastises the soul through his material nature when the soul is going away from Krishna, and he encourages the soul when the soul is going closer to Krishna. Therefore, we have to become convinced that Krishna exists. Now, we may not see Krishna, but we see his energies and we experience his energies. Therefore, when we see the intelligence behind the creation, when we become more seriously engaged in devotional service, desiring simply to please Krishna, we'll see how Krishna is making arrangements so that we have the opportunity to please him. I remember on book distribution, when I didn't know so many techniques, one time I was in Houston, Texas. Houston, Texas is in the south of America. This is in the early 1970s. And Houston, Texas was the home, or at least that part of Texas, was the home of the Ku Klux Klan, not noted for their liberal nature. they regularly take a black person or someone they didn't like and hang them from a tree. In any case, we can understand at that time that dressing in a dhoti and tilak with a shaven head, for them, it was stranger than an alien coming from another planet. And since the devotees who went out for book distribution generally weren't very experienced, this is in the very early 70s. Therefore, stopping people on the street became rather difficult. We had 3 devotees in the temple when I first went there. There was Vishnu Jan Maharaj, there's Srinath Prabhu, and myself. Vishnu Jan Maharaj had the least experience of book distribution, but that was our livelihood. That was the only source of income. So the 3 of us would have to go out every day for so many hours a day. So Vishnu Jan Maharaj would just hold the Back to Godhead open and stand there because he had no idea what to say. Unfortunately, he didn't practically sell any magazines because people were not very impressed by someone holding a magazine out. I myself couldn't figure out exactly what to do. Previously, I'd stopped people with a little bit more aggressiveness where I came from in Buffalo, where I was first distributing Back to Godhead magazines. But here that being aggressive and stopping people didn't work so well. So then I figured the only thing to do is to meditate on Krishna and pray that he stops someone. So I'd stand there and I'd meditate on Krishna, pray to Krishna to stop someone. And within a few minutes, someone would come and stop and ask me what the magazine was about, and then would ask how much it was and give me a donation for it. So that was a fundamental experience that the real technique is to rely upon Krishna, not only in book distribution, but in everything we do. The problem is we don't believe in Krishna that much. If we're put into a position we have no choice, then we pray to Krishna, please help me do this, or please help me do that. And when we're not in such a difficult position, we think, well, I don't really need Krishna so much. No problem. I can do it myself. And therefore, our dependence upon Krishna wanes and it waxes, just like the phases of the moon. Generally speaking, devotees don't like to put themselves in a position of where they don't feel comfortable, where they may be threatened, where they may be outside their comfort zone. Because, number one, sometimes we don't have so much faith that Krishna will help me in this situation. And number two, we think that even if Krishna helped me in that situation, he may not help me in the way that I want him to help me. Therefore, sometimes we're not willing to do certain services, like even Harinam or book distribution, or even talking to people about Krishna, etc., because we're not prepared to do it. In order to prepare ourselves, we have to engage not only in reading Prabhupada's books, but try to see through the eyes of Prabhupada's books. Try to see how things are related to Krishna, and then even in our ordinary life, try to utilize things in Krishna's service. Then we'll be prepared for more difficult circumstances when we're not in control of so much the people that we're dealing with. When we're dealing with devotees, we hope they'll act in a certain way that's expected. When we're dealing with non-devotees, we have no idea how they're going to act. And therefore, without either having the karma of being a salesman or some previous karma where you like to deal with unknown people, generally we're outside of our comfort zone when we're dealing with people we don't know. There are things to learn how to deal with them, but if we actually want to be effective in our goal to help people become Krishna conscious, it's not sufficient just to learn techniques of how to deal with people. We have to learn techniques of how to deal with people in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, we can become expert at doing so many things in this world. There are so many people who have become expert at their material activities. Ultimately, everyone is actually relying upon Krishna, but their aim is not necessarily to become Krishna conscious. We've seen people doing all kinds of things expertly because they've learned to take shelter of the super soul, but they don't give the super soul any credit for that shelter. Therefore, they become expert at sports or communication, salesmanship, whatever. They're praised by others and they take the credit for it. They don't give the credit to Krishna. And therefore, they never remember Krishna. They never take shelter of Krishna. They never feel for Krishna. And therefore, whatever they're doing is under the spell of the illusory energy and ultimately gives them no spiritual benefit. So our first technique is to Savaimana Krishna Badara Vindayo, to enter into every transaction with the idea that I want to take shelter of Krishna. I want to do this for Krishna. Then knowledge will help us. Knowledge that everything belongs to Krishna, knowledge of what Krishna actually wants me to do with his energies, and the knowledge that I should do it to try to please him. But the most basic knowledge is the knowledge that actually Krishna owns everything. And therefore it's our duty to find out what Krishna wants us to do with his energy, or else we'll be misled by the illusory energy. And it's to our greatest benefit to do everything to please him, because as much as we do to please Krishna, Krishna will do everything to please us also for our benefit. Then Krishna will give us the intelligence how to make our lives perfect in Krishna consciousness. So Krishna is very much interested in helping us. He doesn't want to see anyone suffering in this material world. But because we don't listen to him, because we don't see things in the way he sees things, because we don't do things the way he wants us to do them, either with our body, with our mind, or with our words. Therefore, how much Krishna can't really help us except to put us under the influence or the control of his teacher called Maya, to try to encourage us to utilize, to hear from him, hear from his representatives, accept that everything should be, that we have within our sphere of influence should be utilized for his service under the directions of his and his representatives' guidance, and do these things to please him. Because we don't do that, therefore we're being subjected to birth and death. Therefore, Sanatana Goswami, the first thing he asked Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is, who am I? Unless we solve that problem, unless we solve that riddle, who are we? Then we'll never find out why we're suffering in this world. That was his next question. Most people just accept, I have to die. What can be done about it? In the meantime, I just have to try to enjoy. Everyone is fearful. This whole pandemic, whatever it may be, is just run by fear that I might die. As if people, if they can somehow or another solve the problem of the pandemic, then they're going to live forever. But whether it was a pandemic or they've had so many different, this is SARS virus 2, they had SARS virus 1, they had the swine flu, they had the bird flu, bovine flu, they had so many different things. Just to get people out of fear to do things. thinking that they're going to die. Because people have accepted the fact that I'm going to die, and they're just trying to put it off. They don't know that they could actually come to a platform where they can live forever, but they can't do that without becoming Krishna conscious, without rendering devotional service, without accepting themselves as subordinate to Krishna, and without taking shelter of Krishna's representatives. Therefore, we're imagining that there are so many problems in this material world outside of birth, death, old age, and disease. Actually, the problem is we don't accept that Krishna has given us everything we need to become Krishna conscious. And because we're not trying to become Krishna conscious, we're trying to do so many other things, and therefore complicating our existence in so many ways. So Krishna comes and he says, Janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tatvataha tyaktvadeham pranarjanma naiti mam eti sarjana. If you simply understand in truth the nature of my appearance and activities, then you can go back to the spiritual world and avoid all the problems of material existence. Therefore, Krishna comes and speaks Bhagavad Gita. He shows his Vrindavan pastimes just to give us an understanding of reality. And if we can't understand these things, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come and he's given us the easiest process to chant Hare Krishna. Krite tad dayato Vishnu, Tretiyam yajato mukai, dwarpyam paricharyam, kalo tad dari kirtana. And in Kali Yuga, the method that's most practical is to chant Hare Krishna. If we don't chant Hare Krishna, then we can understand that we're simply wasting our time in Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga will simply get worse and worse. There'll be scarcity of rain due to lack of sacrifice. Because of that, there'll be no food. The government will exact heavy taxes. People will be put more and more into suffering until they'll be forced to those who have any intelligence to take shelter of Krishna. So, because we don't hear Krishna, we're doing so many things that are causing ourselves and others problems. Unfortunately, the whole world is full of Mayavadis and impersonalists who have taught us not to believe in Krishna. It's obvious that how Krishna is controlling everything, but not to appreciate that. Not to see matat parataram nanyat kinchit asti dhananjaya mayi sarvamidam proktam sutramani gana eva. Everything rests on Krishna. So that's the real problem, is the materialistic and personalistic upbringing that we have that prevent us from seeing everyone and everything in relation to Krishna and thinking that the only goal of life is sense gratification and avoiding the inevitable miseries of material existence. And because of that, we take shelter of so-called leaders who are actually just misleading us. They're misled and they're misleading us. Prahlad Maharaj advises we should take shelter of those who can teach us how to see everyone and everything in relation to Krishna, become serious about utilizing our energies in Krishna's service, and therefore, with devotion, always see everyone and everything in relation to Krishna, enter into intimate relation, association with Krishna, and solve all our material conceptions of life, free ourselves from all the material conceptions of life, enter into the spiritual realm of consciousness, and solve our problems once and all. Natabara, audio. Natabara. Tienes que mudar. Natabara, you have to turn off your sound. Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Spasiba, Blagadaru. Yes, Liva Prosi. Any questions or comments? Hay algunas preguntas?
Guru Maharaj, one question from Mataji Vaishnavi. Mataji Lavangavata translation now and write to the chat Zoom.
Okay.
A few 10 seconds, okay?
Hare Krishna, moje poklony. Gavritya, что нужно предаваться Krishne и не ожидать ничего нормально и молиться за детей, чтобы Krishna сождал. Благодарю атмосферу для их духовной практики и вечерней.
Guru Maharaj, translation under that you read in Russian.
There's no translation.
Lavangavata sent only me. 1 second.
Oh.
It is said that one should surrender to Krishna and not expect anything. Is it normal to pray for children so that Krishna can create a favorable atmosphere for them, for their spiritual practice and experiences?
Well, first of all, whoever said that when we surrender to Krishna, we shouldn't expect anything. No, if we surrender to Krishna, we should expect what Krishna tells us we're going to get, namely eternal peace and happiness. If we surrender to Krishna, we expect Krishna to fulfill his promise. He'll carry what we lack and he'll preserve what we have. Krishna has promised so many things in Bhagavad Gita. So if we don't expect those things, then we don't know what, we don't understand, we don't have faith in Krishna. One of the processes, one of the qualities of a very advanced devotee in Bhava is that he Shantya Virakta Kalitvam, Virakta Manushunyataha, Ashabanda Sumudkanta. He believes that Krishna will actually reciprocate with him, Sumudkanta. He believes in Krishna's words and he expects Krishna's mercy. So it is normal to pray for children, to pray for ourselves. That's why we're chanting Hare Krishna. If we don't expect anything when we chant Hare Krishna, that means we have no faith in Krishna. If we chant Hare Krishna, we should expect, if we chant it properly, that Krishna will reveal himself to us and will actually be directly associated with Krishna. We should expect that. If we don't expect that, then we're faithless. Or at least we don't have full faith. And it says, Binat Vatvam Namanamino, that Krishna and his name are non-different. So because we don't have that faith, therefore when we chant Hare Krishna, we should try to pay attention when we're chanting. So that all these different doubts we have, all these different ideas, all these different attachments won't interfere with our trying to actually develop the proper attitude of trying to feel Krishna's presence in the holy name. If we don't think that Krishna will protect us, then why would we think he'll protect anyone else? Why are we praying for the intelligence of Krishna, how to raise our children properly in Krishna consciousness? Why are we reading the books to get intelligence if we don't believe that Krishna's words will actually help our children? And if we don't believe Krishna is all-powerful, then why we expect that he's going to be able to help anyone? If we want to help our children, then we should know Krishna can help our children better than we can. If we have that faith, then we rely upon Krishna. Of course, we shouldn't just only rely upon Krishna, because Krishna will give us the intelligence also what our part is in taking care of the children. It's not enough that we should just leave it up to Krishna and we don't go out, we don't give the children any food, we don't dress them, we don't bathe them. We've already given all the responsibility to Krishna. And although Krishna is telling us we should bathe our child, we should dress them, Krishna is protecting the children through us by giving us the intelligence how to do it. But because we don't really believe that Krishna is giving us intelligence, we don't surrender ourselves to Krishna. We leave all the responsibility up to Krishna. Then what can Krishna do? Just like that famous story of how you've heard it before, but I'll just repeat it, how the sincere Christian believed that Jesus Christ would save him under all circumstances. But he was living in a village near a dam, and the news came that the dam was about to break and the whole village would be flooded. Therefore, the government came with trucks to evacuate all the citizens from the village. But the Christian said, "You're all of the devil. You don't have faith in Jesus. Jesus will save me." Now the dam broke, the people are already evacuated from the village except for this one Christian. The dam broke and the water came up to his house. So he went up to the roof. Well, actually, they came in with a boat in order to evacuate him after the water rose up to the second floor of his house. But he said, "Go away, you're all of the devil. You don't believe in Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ will come and save me. I believe in Jesus Christ. I'm praying to him all the time." Then the water rose up, it came up to his roof. He climbed up to the roof of his house. A helicopter came to save him, but he said, "Go away, you're all of the devil. You have no faith in Christ." The water rose up and he drowned. But he was a pious person, so he went to heaven. There he met Jesus Christ, who came and embraced him. Happy reunion. But the man had one doubt. He said, "My dear Lord, I believed in you. I had faith in you, but why didn't you save me? Why did I drown?" So Jesus Christ said, first I sent some trucks to evacuate you. You wouldn't listen. Then I sent a boat to evacuate you. You wouldn't listen. Then I sent a helicopter to take you away, to save you, but you wouldn't take advantage of it. So what can I do? I sent all these people to save you, but you wouldn't take advantage of it. So we have our part to play too as instruments of Krishna, not only with our children, but everyone else that we're dealing with. So we should find out what our part is and try to play it properly. Then we'll actually, not only Krishna will give us his mercy, but also we can expect that he'll probably give others mercy also. If we do our part, and Krishna will do his part too. So I think we'll stop there. If there's no other questions.
I have a question, Maharaj.
Okay, but someone else has a hand up, so we'll take that first. Who has their hand?
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Guru Maharaj, you said about Durvasa Muni that he was envious on Ambarish Maharaj because he was a devotee, a Krishna devotee. Is it possible that senior devotees to be envious on neophyte devotees?
Well, this material world is the main ingredient of the material world. The main element of consciousness is enviousness. So there's just some different degrees. We're trying to override our conditioned envy with Krishna consciousness. But sometimes our enviousness comes out in different ways because we're not perfect. Therefore, we should not become envious if we see someone else envious. That will not help us very much. You're envious, you're supposed to be a senior devotee, so I have a free opportunity to become envious myself, and I can justify it because you're supposed to be senior, you're supposed to teach me, but I see you're envious, so now my natural proclivity towards enviousness can be manifest itself and I'll feel good about it. No, our duty is to become Krishna conscious, and we're working under Prabhupada's directions and the directions of those who are following Prabhupada. We should see the good examples, just like generally speaking, if one is a senior devotee, they'll also have good examples. So rather than dwelling on their bad examples, we should try to see their good examples and follow those. That's the advantage of associating with senior devotees, to see the good things that they're doing and take shelter of those good things. And see the bad things as, everyone has, until they become perfectly pure devotee. There may be some spots on the moon, but we don't criticize the moon just because there's some spots on it. Okay, Nirguna, please ask a question in relationship to the class, Nirguna.
I think it is in some way.
In some way, everything is related to Krishna.
Yeah. First thing, I will tell you I'm in Sarajevo, so I'm okay. I wanted to write to you, but we speak a lot about the scientists and how they are doing something bad. And I also read it in Life Comes from Life. It's all about it.
Yeah.
But science can also be related to the person who built it, the air condition and the oven, and so all the something that help us to have this meeting. And so how do we see it? That this,
yes, the things utilizing Krishna's service, they can be of benefit. They are a benefit. Krishna is giving the scientists intelligence. Come in. Yes, certainly. Krishna is giving the scientists intelligence to do things. Those things can be also utilized in Krishna's service. Therefore, they can be beneficial. But when they're not utilizing Krishna's service, then they're considered to be detrimental to everyone. We don't need air conditioners. We didn't even need this internet. We didn't need any of this. But because it's being utilized in Krishna's service, therefore it is a benefit. But unfortunately, mostly they utilize these things in Maya's service, and therefore they create simply more problems. But they can also be utilized in Krishna's service. But before the internet, when everyone was a devotee, people could communicate from within their heart. There was no lack of communication. There was no lack of comfort because people were absorbed in Krishna consciousness, and because people were pious and they were doing Krishna conscious activities. Therefore, the demigods arranged life in such a way is that the material nature, the seasons were regular, there wasn't extremes of temperature, the food was organic, people were friendly to each other. So it is not that with a progressive Kali Yuga, progressive technology, things are necessarily actually improving. Unless the consciousness improves, then nothing really is improving. It's just superficially improving. The best consciousness is Krishna consciousness, but even pious consciousness is better than the demoniac consciousness. It is more or less has inspired the creation of all these different things to enjoy and control the material nature. Still, these things can be utilized in Krishna's service, and therefore they'll have value in Krishna's service. But outside of Krishna's service, they're actually just distractions from the real goal of life. So I'll just ask one more question. Nityaseva Devi Dasi.
Hare Krishna Gurudev, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Gurudev, just a very simple line we have here, that just what you said also, one second. He preserves what we have, and I carry what they lack and preserves what we have. So, I always read this line when reading Bhagavad Gita, but just needed a bit more explanation on this, exactly what Krishna means when he says this, please.
Well, Krishna will decide what we need. Krishna sometimes takes things away. We think it's a detriment. So this is the Krishna's explanation of Sharanagati. We should believe that Krishna will maintain us and that Krishna will protect us. How he'll do that will be up to him. Sometimes we think we need something, but it's actually not going to be very good for us. And therefore Krishna will take it away. And sometimes we don't want something, but Krishna thinks we need it. And therefore Krishna may supply it. We may not even want it or consciously want it, but because Krishna thinks we need it, he'll supply it to us. Just like a father and the children, the child doesn't know exactly what he needs and how to be protected, but the parents are always looking after the welfare of their child, providing him with what he needs and protecting him from things that may be harmful to him. So the more we become dependent on Krishna, the more Krishna will take charge, the more he'll give us what we desire, what we need, and protect us from what we might be detrimental to us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all. Spasiba. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samaveda
Jai.
Bhai. Gaur Premanande. Hari Bol.
Thank you very much,
Hari Bol.
Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Kumari. Thank you, everyone.
Hare
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Gurudev. Hare Krishna.
Brothers and sisters, Hare Krishna.